Hey everyone, Austin here from Radial Engineering, and today we're going to take a look at setting up your gear for reamping and how to create the best workflow possible. Let's dive in. Welcome back to part 2 in our Reamp 101 series. Previously in our last video, we talked about what reamping looks like. If you haven't watched that video yet, I'd recommend going back there to watch that video first and then coming back here. But today, we're going to take a look at the ideal reamping workflow and how to connect it. The basic reamp workflow is a 3-step process. Recording the dry, unprocessed guitar takes into your DAW, playing those takes back out through your guitar amp, and then recapturing those guitar takes back into your DAW using your guitar rig. Let's take a closer look into how that's done. To start, plug your guitar directly into the input of your DI box. The DI box will convert the high impedance instrument level input into a low impedance mic level output for getting the best clarity and fidelity when feeding your mic preamps. After that, you can directly start recording your guitar into your DAW. If you want to use a guitar amp during the recording process for monitoring purposes, you can connect that amp to the DI box's through output in order to properly feed it. Because we're only recording the dry sound here, you can focus on getting the best sounding takes possible while focusing on tone later. After you have your takes completed, you can assign the DI track in your DAW to whichever physical output on the interface your reamp box is connected to. If your interface doesn't have a dedicated line output to send your tracks to, you can use a reamp box like the Radial Reamp HP to feed your amp via the dedicated headphone output jack on your interface instead. Once you have the reamp box connected to your interface, you can connect the output of the reamp box to your guitar rig using a standard 1/4-inch instrument patch cable. Here's where you can start experimenting with different effects pedals, speaker cabinets, or even amp setups as a whole. Because a reamp box converts the low impedance line level output to a high impedance signal best suited for amps and pedals, it can recreate the sound of your guitar tone with the rich and fullness that you'd expect when connecting your guitar directly. Mic up your new rig and press record in your DAW. As your interface is sending the dry DI outputs to your amp, you'll also be recording your newly finished amp tracks back into the DAW. Now your tracks can go from sounding like this to this. Here are a couple of extra tips to help you get the most out of your reamping setup. First, be sure to get the output level as high as you can without clipping when you're feeding the signal out of your interface into your reamp box. Next, you can try using DAW effects like EQ or limiting to help shape the sound of your dry DI track when you're feeding your amp. Lastly, if you find yourself reamping a lot, you can look into getting a 2-in-1 reamp box like our Reamp Station so that you don't need a separate DI box and reamp box and you always have both on hand. And that's it for today's video. Since we focused on the hardware and physical side of reamping today, in our next video, we'll focus on setting up your DAW for reamping instead. So until then, take care and happy tweaking.